So this is an apology video. About 2 weeks ago, I published a video on the LK99 thing. And in this video, I implied that every single person should have immediately clocked this as not to be taken seriously because this paper is written in Word. And obviously physicists, usually, do not write their papers as Word documents. And I learned pretty quickly from the comments that that is not common knowledge. That is not a thing everyone knows. And so I am sorry if I made you feel dumb for not knowing a thing. That sucks. I didn't mean to do that. I feel like it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? People think the Dunning-Kruger effect is stupid people thinking they're smart, but that's not what it is. The Dunning-Kruger effect is when your knowledge of a topic is different from the average, and that informs how you think about the average. So I have submitted a physics paper before, so I incorrectly, and I'm sorry, assumed that everyone understands that nobody is writing these in words because that would be incredibly difficult. But why would everyone know that? That was on me. That was a mistake, and I'm sorry. So as an apology, I'd like to tell you what physicists usually use to write papers. And I am sorry. This is a sincere apology. I don't ever want to make someone feel dumb for not knowing a thing. It was on me. In the physics community, just being like, it was written in Word would be a thing people would say. But I understand that like anyone who's never published a paper just wouldn't know that. And I'm sorry. Before we go any further, no, I'm not pronouncing it wrong. You can say LaTeX or you can say LaTeX. They're both accepted and they're used interchangeably, and I also use them interchangeably. It doesn't matter. Okay, so what is LaTeX? LaTeX is a typesetting program developed by one Don Knuth in 1978. I am not a computer scientist. I don't think I can convey to you how important Don Knuth is to the field. He's like a legacy character in the field of computer science. If you have time, brilliant guy, just go look up what he does. He's still at it. I just read a very interesting article a couple months ago he put up on his website about how he was surprised by Claude generative AI thing for the first time. And a man after my own heart, he types AI in quotes. So I love that for him. So in the olden days, in the far, far away in the olden days, the 70s, if you wanted to, I don't know, write up your thesis in math, you would have to type it on a typewriter. And Don Knuth wrote a book, and to get the mathematical formula to look very nice, they used like the old-fashioned printing where they made like a mold of each thing and assembled it, right? And then the second draft of the book came out and they were using computers, and he was like, this looks so bad. This looks so bad. The way the formulae look is bad. Hard to read, I will do better, and he came up with TeX. TeX is a way to write like a simple text document. It's similar to writing code, like you have certain commands for writing interval signs or setting a new line or having a paragraph justified a certain way, and you can convert that into a document, a final version of the document that like we would see as like a nice PDF version. So TeX takes this and produces something like this. We use LaTeX, which is just TeX with a bunch of macros to make it easier to use. TeX was developed in the late 1970s, and immediately everybody started using it because, first of all, Don Knuth is like a brilliant guy who makes everything open source and free and easy to use. And also it was way better than anything else anyone had ever used before. So people started developing their own little macros, their own little like ways to use TeX to create nice looking documents. And then like 5-ish years later in the early 80s, Leslie Lamport, also a very brilliant guy, a very famous computer scientist. Again, if you have any time, look up either of these two guys. They're very interesting. He developed something called LaTeX, and he published a manual that was like, this is how I use TeX. And now everyone uses that same thing, but it's an updated, documented version of LaTeX. LaTeX, you write up a document like this, and it produces something beautiful like this. You need a way to type mathematical formalism. LaTeX allows you to do that very easily because TeX was open source and free to use and free to change and free to download. Leslie Lamport did not own LaTeX. He published and profited from a manual of like, here's how I use LaTeX. And then in 1989, LaTeX Leslie Lamport kind of gifted it back to the tech users group, and now the people who maintain tech also maintain LaTeX. A certain subset of people will get mad if you call tech LaTeX or LaTeX tech, but most people, same nebulous thing. I'm not a computer scientist. I think obvious from this discussion, but I also think that speaks to the usability of LaTeX. I'm not a computer scientist, but I use it and I love it, and it makes nice looking documents. There's an interesting thing I'd like to read to you. So this is from a meeting of like the current users and holders of tech, and it was published in 2020 on their website. I'll link it below. And this is from a section on the birth of the LaTeX project. A bit more than 30 years ago, I gave my first international talk at the 1989 TUG conference at Stanford. There I lectured in front of Leslie Lamport and Don Knuth, boldly pointing out the deficiencies of LaTeX 2.09 and what is needed to improve it. Our criticism wasn't new to Leslie, as we had sent him many bug reports and suggestions during the previous years, and after a long meeting following the talk, Leslie passed maintenance and future development of LaTeX on to this group of people. I just think that that's very funny. Like, some guy had a talk and he's like, here's the issue with your product. And then Leslie Lamport was like, I don't want to maintain this. Either nicely or maybe not so nicely. Was there a fight? What's the drama? What is the drama there? Anyway, that's how tech and LaTeX got back together, and they are now maintained by the same group of people. And that is LaTeX. LaTeX was built by a math guy. A guy who did math and wanted the math to look nice. And so people who type math obviously gravitate towards that tool to make their math look nice. That is what people use to write scientific papers in mathematics and statistics and physics and linguistics. You know, if you have a lot of characters that are not like the English alphabet, you need a way to typeset them and set them very specifically with nice little distances apart and introduce new characters. And that's really easy to do in LaTeX. And so that's why people use it. Okay. So Word and other like GUI style word processors come out in the mid to late 1980s. And you could ask like, well, why would you prefer to write a simple text document to produce a PDF rather than use some sort of GUI like Microsoft Word? And to that, have you ever used Microsoft Word? I'm gonna try so hard to not just bitch about what a piece of garbage Microsoft products are for the next, 47 minutes. I could, but I'm not going to. The biggest difference, I think people look at something like Word and they imagine it as easier to use. Like, oh, you just go to equation and you just find your integral and you just click the fraction button and you just put an X. And to me, that's incredibly not complicated, but just intensive. Like, why would I click easily for a long equation 70 to 80 times? Or I could just type the equation to look like this. And then once you learn this language of just like, oh, this is the syntax for typing an integral with a fraction in it, it's very smooth and very easy. Or I could click 70 buttons. To me, using LaTeX is just way easier to get a mathematical equation that will look correct every time. You ever go back and have to put in the fraction? And then when you do use something like Word, it is not built for people to write mathematics equations. Like, Word is built for high schoolers to write book reports. And I mean, you can do it in Word. I'm not going to say it's easier to do in Word. It's easier to do in LaTeX to write a book report. But it is built for people who are just writing text, who want to see the document while they're writing it. LaTeX was built from someone who wanted to have math look nice. Word is for words. Okay. Another reason, and to me the most important reason people might want to use LaTeX over something like Word, is that formatting a document is not the same thing as writing a document. I feel like when you open something like Word, some sort of GUI, or even something like PowerPoint, you start formatting your document, which is not the same thing as working on your document, but your brain thinks it is. You know what I mean? Like, imagine you're a PowerPoint engineer, right? You have to prepare 15 slides to present to your PI in like 3 days. So you open up PowerPoint and you get all the slides and you put like one little title word on it. You put like a little plot, you're selecting the font, you're selecting colors, you're selecting the background. You could easily spend 40 minutes doing that, but have you written the presentation? Have you started it? Have you noted a single word? No. you didn't do anything. Formatting is not writing. And when you are presented with a GUI that shows you how the document will look, you start to focus on formatting instead of writing. Whereas in LaTeX, you're just writing the words and then you like tech to PDF in your command line and you produce the final product at the end. I think, in my opinion, this is the best way to write because you're not focused on where the plots will go. You're not focused on how big the title should be or what order the name should be in or how the references are going to look. All of that will be done at the end. You are writing. Again, not a computer scientist. I know you can tell, but I think this is a common thing in computer science. It's the separation of like content versus presentation. When you are writing a scientific document, what matters are the words and the plots. It does not matter where they're placed. And if you open up Word, you start noticing, oh, this plot's in a weird spot right now. Oh, I should change that. And then you know the meme about moving something in Word, you know. But if you're doing it in LaTeX, you put the text of the plot and you say, hey, put this in the best spot. And it figures it out. And then you can make the PDF. And then when you're done, if you don't like where it is, you can move it around. Do you know what I mean? Word puts all of that in your face. So you start thinking about it instead of what matters, which is the content. And that's why I think LaTeX is the best. That's why. That specific separation of content and presentation. My last note is just like, why would anyone ever use Microsoft? It fucking sucks. And like, Angela, just cut me off after 90 seconds, okay? Microsoft Word is very expensive. They don't even let you buy it anymore. Now it's a subscription service, right? And also, they keep turning off features. Somehow Microsoft Word is worse than it was 30 years ago. If you are as old as I am, you remember in elementary school typing in Microsoft Word and it just worked. And you just typed and the buttons were always in the same location. You can't even autosave anymore. They took away features unless you make an account and you are constantly logged on and connected to the internet so that they can constantly access your documents. You don't own the product anymore, and also you can't use it unless you are constantly connected to them. I bought the student version of Microsoft in 2020, and I was like, fine, this is it. I will buy it. They won't let me use it anymore. They took it away from me. Bill Gates himself owes me $160 because I can no longer use it unless I make an account and I am constantly logged on. And instead, I obviously just took it off my computer. And the only reason anybody uses it is because they have tricked the government, the United States government, into being like, we are the safest, most reliable software. And so if you want to be a government contractor, you have to use Microsoft and fucking Outlook. And it just sucks. It's terrible. Stop giving this man money. You know what? Stop. Just no one should ever use Microsoft products ever. They are trash and it is a scam company. This is not legally actionable, in my opinion, a scam company, because they give you features and then take them away and put them behind paywalls. No one should trust it. And why should you use it when there are free things like LaTeX, like LibreOffice? You know, if you buy a Mac, it just has their version, their Word GUI on it. You can just use it. So why would you ever use a Microsoft product and give this man money? Okay, so let's say you were one of those people who were like, they don't use Word? What do they use? They use LaTeX. And maybe now you'd like to try it. I would love for you to try it. I love LaTeX. I should say, in a video once I mentioned that I like Vim, and I use Vim as like my text editor for like writing programs, and I'm not like a Vim guy. By that I mean that like people who are super into Vim, like they have all these macros and they make it look very nice, exactly how they want it. And like they know all the tricks and the shortcuts and all these things, and I just use it. I'm very much the same way about LaTeX. I use LaTeX to make regular PDF documents. Some people use LaTeX to make things like this. If you get into it, you can get super into it. And I would applaud you if you did. But if you're casual, like me, like every time I'm just writing a Word document, I just do it in LaTeX. It's just nice and it's easy. Just know that going forward. I'm a very casual user and I like it. But if you're the type of person to get into things, you can get super into it. And I would applaud you if you did. But okay, so LaTeX is free to distribute and to use. It's very easy to modify and make it the way you want it. And if you would like to get it, you just go to the website and download it. Don't ever pay for LaTeX. It's free. You can just download it. And there's a little manual that's like getting started, and you can make your first document, and it's easy and fun. This is where it is. But if that seems too daunting, if you're not the type of person to like git clone and install something, there are also browser-based LaTeX GUIs, kind of, which a little bit, in my opinion, defeats the purpose, because I like that the visual is separated. You know, the content is separated from the presentation, but not a lot of people like that. Kids these days, you know, whatever. So the most popular version, I think, is Overleaf. And you go to Overleaf and you can make an account and you can create a document. They have a bunch of templates too. So if you're nervous about like, oh, I want to make a letter versus a CV versus a lab report, you know, they have a bunch of templates, and you can see the tech document on the left, and you can render a PDF on the right, and you can update it when you make changes. And it's really easy to use. And on Overleaf, that basic functionality is free. So if you just want to try it out like today, right now, overleaf.com. This isn't an ad. It would have been a great opportunity, you know, for me to email them and be like, I would recommend your product if you give me money, but they didn't give me money, and they probably wouldn't when I say what I'm about to say, which is that I wouldn't trust Overleaf to keep existing. I mean, they've been existing, I think, for about a decade, but the thing is, I don't understand their product, because LaTeX is, of course, free and easy to use on your computer, like without connecting to the internet. The way Overleaf makes money is a business I don't understand, which is that people pay for an account so that they can have collaborators. So very much like, I guess like a Google Doc. You can pay, you each pay for an account, and then you can see each other's cursors, and you can simultaneously edit a tech document. But do you need to pay money for that? Like, do you really need to see people's cursors? And the rates they are charging, like if you have a lab with you and your 2 postdocs and your 3 grad students and your 2 undergrads, you're paying easily $150 a month for everyone to have an Overleaf account. For what? So they can all stare at the document at the same time? Like, you could just host the tech document on a server and you could all just access it whenever. I don't understand. I like Overleaf a lot. I would never pay for it, and I don't expect it to maintain its hosting services for free. So try it out though while it is free. Go for it. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Physicists don't use Word, they use LaTeX. And you can too, and I would recommend it. Stop paying for Microsoft. If you want to throw away $15 a month, you can join my Patreon. Word is such a garbage product, and I'm begging you to understand that there are so many better free options, and we should all stop stop using it. Like, we should punish companies when they make terrible products and they make terrible decisions. And Microsoft has a 30-year track record of just making worse and worse and worse products and charging more. And it's total nonsense. You accept an invitation to a work meeting, it deletes the email and sends it to the calendar. Why would you delete the email? Why do I have to go to a second location? I know I'm going to get Microsoft defenders in the comments, but I need to tell you, you're in an abusive relationship. Like, there is no reason to use a product that is so negative and bad and continually degrading in quality while also stealing more of your information and data. It's bonkers out there.